What's up guys, Slick here from the WGN Xbox YouTube channel, bringing you a video guide for the Repulsion Theory Triumph. This video is the second installment in our series covering the Garden of Salvation triumphs that are required for the Enlightened Seal. This triumph is fairly straightforward in description. It requires players to only tether to the relay tower when they have no Enlightened buff. In other words, if you tether while you are Enlightened, you will fail this triumph. The gist of our strategy was fairly simple. We had two groups of three, and each group would be buffing together all the time, and that way that group of three people is on the same 45-second cycle. So to describe to you how we set up our teams, I'm going to use a baseball analogy. So imagine a baseball diamond and lay it over top of this encounter. Where you start the encounter, normally it would be named underbrush, we're going to call that home plate. Third base would be thicket, second base is hedges, and first base is the alcove. And we're just going to use the baseball terms because I think they're a lot easier to say and less confusing than the other ways. Most people are familiar with what a baseball diamond looks like anyways. Our teams are the home plate defender, the third baseman, who obviously defends third base, and one of the rotators. They are going to start the encounter off at home. The second team, which is the first baseman, the second baseman, and the other rotator, are going to run down the third base line, clear out the third base plate, and activate that relay tower. Once they've activated the tower, the third baseman can run through the portal and get back to third base to defend it, while the other group pushes on forward. I'm going to make this caveat here. Our run was not very clean at all. We basically developed this strategy on the fly, and we ended up getting it on our first try. The team that rushes down the third base line when they activate the relay, that's my team. You'll see that a couple of our teammates forgot to actually how to reactivate the tower, so I had to call them back, and that wasted some time. That ended up throwing us off in our timing throughout the rest of the encounter. And once we've activated third base, the team at home has to refresh there, and then they can come down. The third baseman comes down to defend that position. Now that we've rushed down to the second base, it was pretty much the same deal, except this time we're going to drop off our second baseman. And again, I'm going to recognize our uncleanliness here. If you don't forget to activate the third base and you make it to second base on time, you don't have to activate it while under the attack by Minotaurs and other miscellaneous ads. Similarly, while we activated second base, the third baseman will travel home through the portal and re-enlighten at the home plate defender and the rotator that are staying there. And it's okay if that doesn't all happen at the exact same time. As long as that unit of three is on the same 45-second cycle, you will find success in this triumph. So where you stand at the encounter at this point, you have activated all the towers except for the one at first base, which is alcove. You have your second baseman stuck at second base. You have your other team of three is all working out fine. The home plate defender, the home plate rotator, and the third baseman, they're all fine. What has to happen here when the first baseman and the rotator push out first base is the second baseman is going to have to run down, literally run down the lane to get to first base to tether up. And this is because we don't yet have the portal activated. So you should be just watching your minimap, wait for that guy to get there, and as soon as he gets there, activate the tether and get the relay tower activated. At this point, the second baseman can now head back through the teleporter to second base. Unfortunately, our guy forgot to do this, and he decided to run back, which, if you're thinking, that's not going to allow you enough time to prevent the ads from sacrificing and wiping you in the encounter. So what I had to do is run through the portal as a rotator and then clear out his plate for him. Which wasn't that big a deal. We ended up getting through this part, pretty quickly. If this is something that happens to your team, you should be able to recover pretty simply. But I ended up having to cover his ass, and it's really a miracle that we ended up getting this on our first try. So, anyways, third baseman, home plate defender, another rotator. You go back to home and buff up as you always have. First baseman, second baseman, and myself as the rotator. We're gonna buff back up at first base, and then continue on with the encounter. Fast forwarding a little bit, now all the towers should be active, which means that all the portals are up. You're going to have your waves of angelic spawn, and our first wave happens to spawn at second base, which is hedges. The rotators, you're going to go and help with the angelics like you usually do. You kill them, you return your respective relay tower that you buff at. And here's what's actually really neat about the encounter. Just like how the enlightenment is a 45-second timer, the rate at which each wave of ads spawns is also on 45 seconds. So it's 30 seconds of ads or angelics, 15 seconds of downtime where it says, the forces have subsided or whatever it says in the chat, and then the next wave of ads will spawn. Fast forwarding a little bit again here, unfortunately due to our screw ups earlier in the encounter, being at the right place at the right time, my team of three was exactly 1 second delayed on getting our buff, which means that as soon as the defense is deployed, 1 second later is when we are picking it up again. Unfortunately, you see the Angelics here spawn on first base. Now, if we were thinking, we could have switched to second base to get our buff, but we didn't quite do that. What we did instead was we had the home plate rotator go over to second base to compensate for him, and then we ended up having the home plate defender come to first base to clear out the enlightened ads once he took care of his plate. And then myself, as the rotator and the first baseman, just ended up taking care of Angelics and doing what we could to stall out the goblins that were enlightened from sacrificing at the tower. We ended up getting through it, wasn't too terrible, and the encounter is pretty smooth sailing from there. We've pretty much discovered all the ways that we could screw up and knew how to prevent them. Let's jump to the end of the encounter now. When you rush to the middle where the pitcher's mound, sticking with my baseball analogy here, you have to kill the Angelics, tether up, do the next wave like you normally do. The only difference is instead of having everybody tether at the same time in the middle, we had the first group tether first, so our home plate guys, they took the first tether, and then my group, the second group, took the second one. And you just have to make sure that when your group was not up for tethering, you were just out of the way. That way you didn't get accidentally tethered and get enlightened. You won't need to tether a third time. As long as you kill all the ads, the encounter will end, the chest will spawn, and you can get your triumph. Hopefully our video was pretty helpful for you guys, seeing all of our mistakes, knowing not to make them the same way, and then hopefully you guys end up having a cleaner run than we do and earn your triumph. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for me in this video. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one for the Triumph Relay Route.